announcement there.
You're listening to Head South Radio with your host, Kat Meyer, a podcast dedicated to prioritizing pleasure and removing the stigma and shame around sex. We're here to be curious and have an open conversation about sexual health and relational wellness. This podcast is intended for educational and entertainment purposes. The information discussed is not a substitute for professional medical advice.
To get started, just find your seat. Ground down into your sit bones. Start to shift your weight right and left, forward and back, and kind of find the center point that feels grounded for you. You can start to close your eyes if you haven't done so. And then from that rooted, grounded feeling of your sit bones down into the seat, start to lengthen through the crown of your head, finding some space in between each vertebra of your spine, creating some integrity with the spine so that your rib cage can hover just above your pelvic bowl. And then let your shoulders become heavy and draw down your back like a cape. And then upward direction of the crown of your head, pulling up towards the ceiling, and that suspension in your torso. Can you start to tune into your breath? And noticing the quality of your breath right now in this moment. And then just set an intention for yourself for the next hour of conversation, something you'd like to hold with you as we talk. And then when you're ready, just start to blink your eyes open, taking in your room, taking in the space, taking the light, taking in your screen. Hi.
Hello.
Amy, thank you for joining me on Head South Radio. I'm going to start with some icebreaker questions. How do you like to be comforted when you're sad?
I think I like to be covered in like a big soft blanket and be given like a cup of chamomile tea and like here comes the commune. Cuddle puddles. I really like cuddle puddles. Then I like to think of practical ways that actionable things I can do to kind of so like having someone kind of brainstorm what we can do that's practical to get out of the situation of the sadness.
Mm-hmm. Move through those feelings rather than like suppressing them.
Mm-hmm.
Would you rather give up kissing or give up orgasms?
Oh, kissing. I'd give up kissing.
Do you believe in love at first sight?
I believe in like limerence, the limerence state of love at first sight. So that.
What's limerence? I've never heard of that term.
So it's like the state when you first meet someone with the racing thoughts and sweaty palms and palpitating heart. It can also be confused with anxiety or like drug addiction. It all kind of looks the same on the scan. But I've definitely experienced love at first sight. But I also don't think that everyone should date based on love at first sight.
Actually, we're going to probably have to get into that a little bit more. I like the idea of like limerence is like your body's response and reaction to outside stimulus, whether that's love or drugs or whatever kind of does that to your body. It's a physical response.
And it can last for up to 2 years typically. And it's the stuff that the poets write about and the pop songs are about.
Would you rather be terrible in bed or a terrible kisser?
I guess terrible kisser.
Yeah, you're like, kisses are done.
It's over. It's over.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to rub elbows.
Yeah. Would you rather sneeze every time you orgasm or orgasm every time you sneeze?
Orgasm every time I sneeze. It's coming all over the place.
Yeah. Okay, so what do you do? Who are you? And why are you on our podcast?
Okay. So my name's Amy Van Doran. I'm a professional matchmaker. I've been matchmaking for maybe 16 years. I've interviewed over 15,000 single people. And yeah, people hire me and I help them find their great loves. And on the way, we do some coaching and some self-discovery so that they're in a place to receive that love.
How did you get into this?
I just started telling the real story. So I started when I was 22. I wanted to be a durational performance artist in New York. And that's a performance artist that deals with time. And so I was doing a lot of public performances. And so one of my performances is I was giving free love advice in a park for like 9 or 10 hours a day. And a magazine, New York magazine, saw me and they're like, "Why are you dressed so crazy?" And I said I was a matchmaker. It just like came to me in a moment. And yeah, I said that I was a matchmaker, and that was kind of a genius thing to say. And then, I ended up figuring out how to do my job later. But it's been wild since the beginning.
Yeah.
But now it's been 16 years, 15,000 interviews. It's turned into like an amazing, perfect fit for me. So I'm glad. But I'm not always in the practice of just like saying crazy lies. But that was a little moment of, and it saved me because I would have never been able to make a living being a street performance artist in New York. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's more of a moment of clarity and like
Mm-hmm.
receiving from the universe, like, this is what you should be doing versus like, hey, I just made this story up. I'm like, gonna go
Yeah.
with it.
No, it came like in a full download in that moment. I was like, yeah, I'm going to work with the incredible self-actualizing women in New York. And yeah, it all came exactly how I thought it would be. And I've been pretty consistent with how I work since then.
That's incredible. And like my own journey into this and creating Head South comes from that same, like, I woke up from a dream and a download. And like every step I've taken has moved through like downloads and like knowing what to do, whether I know what to do or not, like just allowing the things to unfold. So I really appreciate that. That's been your journey. What were you telling people you were doing before? Like, if this is the true story, what was the story you used to tell?
Oh, well, I never had to tell, like, I would just be like, oh, I am a matchmaker. And I mean, at some point you have to make it up because it's a very niche job. There's not that many matchmakers. And I
Mhm.
remember when I did the thing, I like called all the matchmakers. I like Googled them and I was like, hey, do you guys know how to do your job? And they're like, no, we had to make it up.
Yeah, yeah.
But I didn't say like, oh, was talking to the press and just like, I just kind of left that out
I
of it.
see. Yeah. The more magic side of it. So now you're starting to tell the magic side, which I
Yeah.
appreciate very
And,
much.
and it's been enough time and I'm good enough at my job that it doesn't matter how it started.
Yeah. And yeah, there's no like certification program for this. It's kind of one of those like intuitive healing arts, right? Like it's
Well,
something that like,
there is a program. There's like we're trying to clean up the matchmaking industry because so many people do just say that they are a matchmaker, and a lot
mm,
of people are vulnerable because they're lonely. And so there is a program. It doesn't talk about like so much the emotional components of matchmaking, but really like how to run a business, what a contract looks like. But yeah, it's hard to express the more, I guess, spiritual side or creative side of matchmaking. And I think everyone kind of has their own process.
mhm.
But there is a place, there's a matchmaking institute, and you can get certified.
Yeah, to create some structure and
Hmm.
boundaries around that profession. That makes sense. It's like in hairdressing, there's like you're creative and I was a hairdresser before, but like you're creative and you're able to express, but you have to learn how to like not put bleach in somebody's eyes and like what not to do and how to set up your business properly so that you can do the things that you're intuitively good at or
Exactly.
naturally gifted with. Yeah. And so looking back on it, were you like this as a teen or as a child? Like, were you, that way of like connecting people and being able to like, I'm assuming you're able to like read people and then help kind of identify where and how to match them. Like that's kind of your process. I would love for you to share your process, but I was curious if was this something that you had throughout your entire life that you're like, oh yeah,
Oh my
duh, this makes
gosh.
sense.
Always. I had a pretty strange childhood, and it was a very lonely childhood. My mom is deaf, and so I spent my first 7 years living with her, and I didn't really speak because I was very shy. And so I wasn't really connecting with other kids. And then, I got adopted by my grandparents, and, they were very cool, but busy being like crazy bohemians. And so I was always a bit of an outlier or a freak. And so my way of making people like me was by trying to be helpful. And I think
Mhm.
because I was trying to fill my own loneliness, being able to help other people solve that has always been a thing. But I remember being in middle school and having like matchmaking mixers at the mall. My stepmom says that I found her at the grocery store and introduced her to my dad. And so, but I just like, and it's not just like I matchmake everything. Like I like my clothes to match. I like to matchmake people with communities and jobs. I just love putting things where they go and connecting. And I get really high off of that.
So what is your process like, and has it evolved from when you started? Like, I'm assuming it evolved, like, as you kind of started to learn and pull these things together, and like the people, your clientele that you're working with, and starting to understand. So what is your process like now? And then how is it different from when you first started?
So my process has been very consistent from the beginning. It's totally inefficient. I love hearing people's stories. And so I've always done it on paper. So 15,000 matchmaking interviews for 1 hour at a time. I used to do it only in person. I had a little gallery in the East Village, and the questions range. But so we go into like early childhood stuff, attachment theory, taste, lifestyle, hopes, dreams. And so I just started collecting the data of all these people that would help let me interview them. And then I'd put them in my database. I only work with 16 people at a time. I've always only worked with 16 people at a time. So then I make them little bios, and then I go through all my files, and now I have another matchmaker who's amazing, and we go through the files and we use our imaginations to imagine what people would be like on dates, and if they would laugh at each other's jokes, or if they're decorating a home, or if they're in a movie, would they be the same genre of movie? Do they have the same life goals, ambitions? Do they know how to communicate? Is there going to be a flare up with their different attachment systems? And so it's always been just using a lot of imagination. And then after people go on dates, I get feedback. And so through that feedback thing, we can actually tell what's working, what's not working. And so it's very loving, thoughtful. I kind of think of myself as a wizard. And so I'm trying to use psychology to help people kind of come into their highest, best selves so that they can meet their highest, best selves and have these like beautiful, conscious, omega kind of level matches.
Wow.
And so that's always how I've match made.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. So how many people, like, you've interviewed 15,000 people? How
Hmm.
many people have actually matched through your work? Like, and have you seen like, oh wow, like exactly how I envisioned, like their wedding day, like all of those things start to happen?
Yeah. Matchmaking's a little bit rigged because by the time someone comes to a matchmaker, they really want a relationship. And matchmaking's expensive. So by the time they're investing in a matchmaker, the cab light is already on. And
Hmm.
so it's a little bit rigged, right? Like if you put two people on a date that really want to be in relationships, they're more likely than, if you're doing online dating and meeting people that aren't necessarily looking for the same thing.
If someone is like, I'm curious about this, and like, maybe I should get a matchmaker, like, what is the return on their investment?
Sure. Yeah. Which is something I never think about because I am motivated by people having so for me, success is like if someone has a blind spot and we can like solve the mystery. Like I had one client who went on 300 dates and he didn't settle down with anyone, and him learning that he wasn't relationship oriented was as exciting as, we've had hundreds of marriages. But also I have people that haven't dated before that just like want the experience of dating, or that are going on a different journey, or people that have been married before and like I thought it was successful when they got a minivan so that they could cart all their children from their previous relationships together. And so for me, marriage isn't the end all. I think for me, I'm really, really motivated by personal development and kind of breakthroughs. But people, they do like, so from last year's 16, we have 4 engagements, which I think is pretty good within a year.
That's a huge rate.
Yeah, it's good. And we've been doing more events, and so that's been really powerful, letting people have agency,
Hmm.
and so that's been bringing up more connections. But as there's definitely a shift, right? More people are interested in non-traditional things. The old models weren't necessarily working for everyone, And I think that we're using some creative new ways to solve things. Like in New York, for women in their 40s, there's 10 women to 7 guys, and 60%, when we're talking about heterosexual relationships, 60% are dating 10 years younger. So it's like, I don't know, 10 to 3. There's just not enough. The supply and demand is off. And so many people are taking it personally that they haven't been successful, but really it's not balanced.
Do you know where the single available men are that are ready? Like
Mm.
in what city? Like
Mm-hmm.
is there a city that this is like thrive, like relationships and marriages are thriving or potential dating?
Yeah. So New York is kind of known all over the world amongst all the matchmaking communities to be the most difficult place to date. And actually, I never watched Sex in the City, and I started watching it the other day, and I was like, oh, like literally nothing. It's only gotten worse since Sex in the
Yeah.
City.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do know that in the middle of the country, people are more relationship oriented and less like individualistic. Here's my journey. Here's my career. I know that there's a lot more statistically. There's more men in San Francisco. I've been setting up New York women with men in Philadelphia since I've been in Europe. In this castle, oh my God, everyone's so attractive here. They're so lovely.
Yeah. Have you been trying to
So,
matchmake at the
oh yeah,
castle on the
yeah,
commune? Yeah.
we've been making some really really amazing matches. Some like
Yeah.
real gorgeous love stories are happening here. We've already got like 3 like I think like perfect matches this season.
Oh,
So I'm
wow.
really
Oh, I
I'm
have
really
like super
excited.
goosebumps.
Mhm.
That's so
Yeah, no,
amazing.
it's been because like when you're spending time with people, all the things that people are like coming into a matchmaker or online dating, there's superficial things like, oh, they have to be this or they have to make this much money or whatever. Instead, you're actually connecting with people and bonding over doing things together. How do you collaborate? Are you also community motivated? And so people that might have been ignored on a dating app, like for me, like I fall in love while doing dishes, like I love doing dishes here and I get my little dishes crush. And because we're like really good, we have like a dishes vibe. I'm going off of that based on like in the past, I was like, oh, cool. Did they own a nightclub I liked, or are they also Buddhist, or like I was going off of kind of more superficial things, and now I'm just like, who's good and who can I like build cool stuff with? Like who's a good collaborator and who's kind. And you can't tell that from an online dating thing.
No, you can't. I love that because that is truly like I've been in a relationship now, I think it will be 2 years in August. And within the first 6 months of us dating, we went on a road trip to Australia where he's from and rode in a van. And that was very clear indicators of like how we interacted in this tiny little space van and like switched on and off driving, like all of our roles that we took on and the things. And so like, yeah, doing dishes and seeing him do our laundry and folding it. And I was like, oh yeah, this is where people fall in love is those moments. It's
Mm-hmm.
not on paper. It's not the checklist of like what you think you need for a future life that you don't even know whether or not it's possible. It's kind of like I think people because of the dating apps, and I would love to get your opinion on dating apps and like where you see it kind of come up against what you're doing in matchmaking, which you kind of just alluded to. But it's like, what are your take on matchmaking and dating apps and how people function in those?
Yeah. So when I started, online dating there was no Hinge, there was no Tinder. There was like a little OkCupid. Sometimes like you might use Craigslist. There wasn't this culture of making a list of demands and treating dating like a capitalistic marketplace where you just type in what you want and then you feel like there's endless options. Like that wasn't there. And so I thought when online dating became more popular that people wouldn't want to spend a lot of money on a matchmaker. And, that was okay. Like, I'll do whatever as long as I'm helpful somewhere. And so if matchmaking wasn't necessary, then happy to, you know, go play basketball or something. I don't know. But so, yeah, the online dating, it started off kind of cute, but I think now it has made a culture of people dopamine addicted. People aren't getting off. People are getting burned out. It's working like some people are getting all the attention. The rest of everyone else is getting ignored. And so I think that there's been a saturation point where people kind of stopped believing in the process. And what's interesting about matchmaking is maybe I don't have the secret sauce. Maybe what is good about it is instead of being cynical from an online date, thinking like, how is this person going to disappoint me? Why are they single? What's the catch? And going into a date with that mentality versus, oh, well, Amy says we're both cool. She says we have this magical thing in common. Let's discover what's amazing about this other person in front of me and use creativity to see what's lovable rather than disqualify people.
Mm,
And so
yeah.
I think it brings hope. You can be doing the same stuff online dating over and over again, but if you don't have a buddy in your corner being like, that wasn't working, let's try a different strategy lovingly. Like maybe like I have all these men that are emailing me right now and they're all demanding to date Natalie Portman, like literally like getting emails. And I, I'm like, you can demand her all you want, but that's not going to make Natalie Portman want to date you. Why don't you date people that you can actually make sense with, that would actually like you, Like if I wanted to date like a quarterback doesn't want to date me. Now, if I wanted to date someone who like his favorite movie is The Fifth Element or Run Lola Run, like I'll be very successful,
Yeah.
So you gotta have perspective, not just like what you're looking for. It isn't Amazon. You can't just buy what you want. It's what also wants you back.
Yeah, your own self-awareness and what you're attracting. I've witnessed that a lot, and I've seen a lot of girlfriends. I'm about to turn 40, so I have a lot of friends in the range of 30 who are looking for husbands and are mostly based in New York and are so frustrated with this dating app situation and like quitting it, getting on it, feeling so demoralized, but also coming to it with like their red flags, checklists. He doesn't do this, or like questioning, like, well, he's an artist. And I'm like, yeah. Or like he does, like, there's like these funny little nitpicky things that they envision are blocking like whatever future life they hold for themselves. And it's like, well, but what if there's so much other potential with this person? And they're, to your point, kind, compassionate, great at like supporting you in the ways that you need, but you wouldn't know that until you actually got to know them. And I've never done a dating app. I signed up for one a few years ago and it was like, I did 24 hours barely. And I was like, this is not for me. I've always met the person and like, there's like some kind of kismet energetic pull towards the people that I've dated. So I don't know that experience of it. To me, it feels like going on a job interview, or I've like been in the process of raising funds for my company and just kind of dog and pony show of like, dude, I always think of, recently I saw a meme where they used the footage of Macaulay Culkin as a kid in Uncle Buck, and he's asking John Candy questions. And they're like, this is what online dating is like. Like, if you don't understand, and he's like, do you have any kids? Were you married before?
Mm-hmm.
Like as a child. And I'm like, I feel like that's accurate of like the going through the checklist and then being like, nah. And it must be difficult because there's something to, I think, humans that needs the energetic, needs to kind of feel that moment and that pull towards like a magnetism towards somebody versus like a checklist. And so how do you navigate people or help people? Because it sounds like that's what you kind of are there to do and ready to do, is like help people kind of move away from like that thinking to the new like a perspective that's just how we would want to find our mates. I think like as humans, like finding your mate in a more natural, open-minded setting versus like I'm on a time crunch here. I have 2 more dates today. I've had friends who are like, I have a lunch date, I have a coffee date, I have a dinner date, and I've got to like get through this interview. And I'm like, that can't feel good.
Yeah. And of course, there's ways to date online more thoughtfully, right? Like you can do it more consciously, have phone conversations, ask questions instead of the same questions that everyone's asking, ask new questions that make the other person feel alive and seen and cared about. And instead of like treat it like, oh, I'm going on a date and I have to judge this person on the first date, whether or not they're going to be my person or get disqualified from the next round, instead of just being like, oh, I'm meeting a new person. And it's a miracle that we both get to be on this planet at the same time and I can learn something. And I mean, with matchmaking, it isn't natural, right? Like I have every single person do a 1-hour interview with me. So I have all the background stuff. I know if this person wants to get married or what their feelings on monogamy are or what their childhood is like and where they want to ultimately live. And so because they're not worried about that, they can kind of show up on the date and actually have an experience instead of being like, okay, where are you from? What's your hobbies? Do you smoke? Like instead of like doing this like tyrannical act of like just grilling people, you can go on a walk and just like see the world and kind of experience things and just like do like a vibe instead of and so since we've actually started getting our clients to move away from just dinner dates, because that's very aggressive, and getting them to do more engaging activities, I think that people are actually, because they're in their body and they're in their emotions instead of their like analytical mind, I think a lot more. Like I had one client the other day and he had gone on like 20 first dates and they're all dinners. And I was like, listen, maybe dinner is not where you're shining. Like let's try something else. And then immediately the next day, he ended up in a relationship with the person. They went to the botanical gardens.
Yeah, actually, that is such a good point because I do like if I think back to my relationships and dating, like when I first dated this partner, it's like we went on a bike ride, we had a picnic, we went for a walk to the beach. Like there was all that. And because we met each other naturally and like communicated through DM on Instagram prior to actually meeting up with one another. But there was like a connection, there was already an understanding, but there was also this not like, we didn't actually go for dinner and have like a sit down dinner for like months. It was always
Yeah.
like activities and like going to archery and doing things that you start to create memories together
And experiences. Yeah, we want to be in a movie. And the
Yeah.
movie can't be us asking the same 36 questions across this table at a, we want to feel alive and we want to feel like we're writing our own narrative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that hopefully people listening will start to shift away from that. Like if you are online dating, if you are doing this, do you mostly work like if like your 16 people, are they mostly women and then you're matching them with men? Are you matching people in that 16 cohort together or it's like a pool of other people?
Yeah. So I matchmake. Well, one, matchmaking's expensive, right? And so it's definitely a luxury in the like high end handbag. I'm buying a painting, but you get a team of, 2 full-time matchmakers, a photographer, 16 recruiters, a coach. But yeah, so we work with 16 people at a time, but I interview 54 a week. And so I'm only working with people that I'm really inspired by, that I think are doing cool stuff, that are optimizing. And so for me, I don't care what I work with men, women, people, queer, everything. Just I work with people that are kind and
Mm-hmm.
open to coaching and like really, really also I'm like with them all the time. So I pick people I like to be around that I feel good
Yeah.
around. Because if I feel good around them, then I can be like, oh yeah, you've got to meet Lewis. He's the best. But if a client was mean to me or unkind to me, or if I didn't have a connection, how would I be able to be like, oh yeah, you should date my sister? Like that'd be awful. And so what I love about my community, finding a matchmaker, you have to find the match with the matchmaker, right? Like if someone was
Yeah.
very conservative, they probably wouldn't like the people that are naturally attracted to my brand. And so the first match is finding the right matchmaker. But if you hire a matchmaker, be nice to them because the nicer you are to them, the harder they will work.
Yeah. Let's take a quick break. Hey there. Allow me to introduce you to something that has completely transformed my body, the floss. The floss isn't just a trend, it's a movement method that has reshaped the way I approach my well-being. Imagine a subscription-based platform that offers you a key to unlocking your body's potential. Fascia flossing, as it's called, doesn't just scratch the surface, it remaps the fascia network of your body. Through a tailored blend of physical manipulation, guided resistance movement, and muscle elongation techniques, it's like giving your body a personalized renovation. Since adding the floss to my daily practice in 2019, I've experienced incredible improvements across the board. My mind-body connection is stronger than ever, and let's talk about the intimate aspects. Yes, it has boosted my sexual health connection too. You can hear more about that in the episode I recorded with the founder of the floss, Bonnie Krotzer. The floss supports all of my body systems, enhances mobility, offers prevention, and provides that active recovery we all need. Curious to learn more? Head over to thefloss.com, and if you use the code HEADSOUTH, you'll receive 50% off the first month.
Not all lubes are created the same. Here at Head South, we've worked diligently to pare down the ingredients so there is no fuss and no unnecessary bits and bobs. Head South intimacy serums make it simple and easy for you to reduce friction and enhance pleasure. Listeners can get 20% off their first order of a starter kit using the code PODCAT24. That's PODCAT24. And now, back to the episode.
It sounds like you're kind of like everybody's best friend and you're just like, hey, this can work. I remember like being a kid on the playground and there was always that kid that was like trying to get like at the age when everyone's starting to be interested in one another and being like, blah, blah, blah likes you. Brad said he liked you, or we were playing that game. And, like that feels so fun in your role of like, I get to like help people find connection. That's incredible.
And I get to be bossy without feeling guilty because I'm actually people are asking for it, like when I was a
Yeah.
kid and being bossy, everyone's like, we didn't ask for that. But now people are like, please, please,
Yeah.
But I do it all the time. Like even I go to bed and I'm just like going through every person I've ever met and just like trying to just put the things where the things go,
Yeah.
But so I
Solving the
thought like through
puzzles.
time, I thought like after like year 2, like I'd be burnt out, but it's like year 16 and I love it more than I've ever loved it before.
So then I have a question of like, I think where people kind of get stuck, or like in my position, I have friends who are like, set me up with whoever you know. Or like once I started dating my partner, I'd have friends be like, does he have any friends? That sort of thing. And there's a pressure, like I've had conversations with my partner about setting up his friends and my friends of like, well, what if it doesn't work out? So do you have any advice for like setting people up on blind dates or trying to connect people without feeling that like, uh-oh, I don't want to take this on. I don't want to get text messages in the middle of the night, like asking, like he didn't answer, like what, that sort of stuff. Like I was like, there is that kind of apprehension of like, well, what if it doesn't work out feeling? So if you have
Totally.
any advice.
Yeah. So I would say, yeah. And people get so offended if you show them someone they don't think is like good enough, or if it goes bad, like you can be on the receiving end of it. But so, what I say is I'm introducing you to someone that's cool for an adventure. There's no pressure. And this is an experiment. And so if it doesn't work out, be thankful that I'm trying.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
matchmakers charge so much money. If people should be matchmaking their friends, but their friends should be thankful and generous and be willing to go out on a limb and actually try meeting someone that they wouldn't typically go for. But I really believe that it's going to be we're in a loneliness epidemic, and it's going to be through community, through people through their friends and through their friends of friends, making connections is how we're going to get out of this. It's not going to be people locked in their lonely apartments on computers
Scrolling.
all day for work and then getting off and scrolling. That's not going to be the solution for us feeling more connected and happy. And also with communities, you're not relying on just one person to be everything. Like you can have your person that you go on long walks with and have deep conversations, or your person that helps you with your computer stuff, or the person that you have hot sex with. I really, since I've started studying intentional communities, I'm seeing the ways in which it is solving the problem of loneliness. Like there's an older woman that's here whose husband passed away, but she doesn't have to be lonely because like she has us. And, like I miss my own grandma. And so now she's my grandma, and I don't have any kids, but there's kids here. It's just taken so much pressure because like I'm a single 38-year-old matchmaker, like how did that happen? New York is what happened.
Yeah.
And when I was turning 38, I was so mad at myself and so hard on myself. But since I have, many communities that I have that keep me not feeling lonely, I can date from a more relaxed and empowered place. And I'm no longer stressed out about time or the dating market, because it doesn't matter, right? Like online, like, yeah, maybe I'd be phased out of searches. But in real life, people just date who they get along with and like. It doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah. I also think that mentality of community and connection also alleviates the pressure of our partners, because we've shifted from like, we used to be village people communing together. I mean, oftentimes through religion or other systems. But I think as we've moved through that, we're now in a place of like isolation, every man for himself. And then when like a couple gets together, it's just us. And like you expect your partner to be your partner, your lover, your counsel, your everything. And like a lot of people lose themselves in that relationship, and then they don't have the other. So to the woman on your commune who lost her husband, so many people go through like such dark periods when their other half, because they believe that's they're only half of a person and the other person is the other half of them. Like that creates such a level of grief and loss and like disassociation from them, like disorientation, and that loneliness and isolation is like exacerbated from even just that mentality of like, you are my end all be all and you are everything to me. And it's like, there's so many factors that can like lead to the end of that relationship. And if you don't cultivate community outside of your own relationship, it's like so much pressure, so much unnecessary pressure, I think. So to build and cultivate community and to have these opportunities. And I think what I've loved too is like, I just moved to LA and I've had so many people be like, I'm going to introduce you to this person. And it's like, oh, it might be good for my business. It might be good for me to just have somebody to go for a walk with, like as a friend. Like I love that that's starting to happen more. But I was like, actually, it's funny because it's happening because I'm new here. Like, and I'm saying it out loud. Like I'm teaching a yoga class and going, I'm new here. I'm fairly new here. And then people after class will be like, oh, you should check out this thing or go here. But if I wasn't saying that, we kind of just assume and like move through our day. And it's like, actually, sometimes we go through phases. I'm going to be 40. And it's like, I've gone through a phase of like shifting through friendships, or like my friends have moved away. Like I was in New York and I looked around and I was like, all my friends moved upstate. They moved to LA or they moved back home to start their families. And I was like, I'm alone and I have no idea how to start a new community again at this age in New York when it's already so freaking hard to be here. And so that was one of the reasonings to move to Los Angeles, was like, I can start over and I can like share that I'm alone. And people are very like so supportive, and they know, like my partner and I are in a long distance relationship. And the number of people who've been like, if you ever feel lonely, just call me. Or if you want like someone to have dinner with, like people extending their presence because they know like my partner's not here with me. And it's just assumed like, oh yeah, you're partnered, you're good. But I just love that.
That's so beautiful. And loneliness, like it's, I'm reading studies that say that it's worse for your health than smoking cigarettes, than heavy drinking. And we have to band together, and you can't just wait around and hope to meet a matchmaker. Like you can look at your city new. You can start a sunset watching club. That's what we do. We have a sunset watching club in Brooklyn, and everyone that walks by, I'm like, hey, neighbor, just so you know, you're invited to our sunset club. And they bring people, and any person can start a community. Any person can have a dinner party where they all ask for them to bring one other interesting person. Community don't wait for someone else to do it. Pretend like you haven't always been here and reopen, look at things freshly and see where there's opportunity.
Mm-hmm. No, I love that, bringing one interesting person to a dinner party, because I think it's such a cool way to like bring new community together, and like you just don't know who's going to show up. And I think that's a very cool way of building that, because I do think there's like enclaves and people like myself, like I had like a very tight group and they've like kind of, disbanded in the great way of growth. But it's like, okay, well, how do we start again? Yeah, no, you don't have to do what I did and move to LA, but that's not the only reason I moved to LA. But I do feel like it's so funny, because yesterday I was thinking of that, of like, oh, I'm really enjoying walking up and hiking to Griffith Park. And I want to start inviting people at sunset with me. So it's so funny that you said you started a sunset club, because that's been percolating of like, oh yeah, if I do a 5:30, I have a friend who does it with her dogs on the beach in Venice. They all meet up and they do like yappy hour and watch the sunset together. And I was like, I don't need a dog for that though. Like I could just walk with other humans and go watch the sunset. Yeah.
Yes. Please, everyone, if you do nothing else, just know that we have the sunset. And so let's not forget to take a moment and watch it every day.
Yeah. It's such a
Talk to
beautiful
strangers,
thing.
watch sunsets. Like let's get back into, let's bring some of the humanity back into the way that we're interacting with people.
Yeah. Like without agenda, just sunsets. Like it doesn't have to be a transaction. I think that's a lot of it too, is like things feel very transactional these days and like need to get to give, or, that sort of feeling. And it's like actually just being and not having to do anything is really, really magical. And I think it's what we're meant to be doing as humans.
Definitely. When I first came to this community in January, I was only going to stay for a couple days, and then I was going to do Mexico for the winter. And someone had asked me for help for something, and I was like still in my New Yorker like capitalism mindset. And I was like, in my head, I was like, oh my God, that if I were to stop doing everything right now, that'd cost me $1,000. And I was like, that's a fucked up thought. That's really mentally ill. And I've
Yeah.
regrown my relationship with time and generosity of time. People are like, oh yeah, like we'll watch your dog, or we'll help you do the dishes, or, oh, you need help making a YouTube video? Like we can do that. Like everyone's just, it's no longer transactional. We want to help each other. And that's been such I think it really saved me from probably a nervous breakdown,
Yeah. Yeah, experiencing energetic exchange and support in that way versus like it has to be. I'm working through the same stuff as well, and like working through the fact that like time bends to our will when we believe it. Like we're structured around Newton's time, which is linear, but time is actually expansive. And if you think of Einstein's time, which is hundreds of thousands of scenarios and versions of time, and you start living with that, which I've been doing for the past 2 years, like nothing is impossible and everything is possible. And like you can move through the day in a very different way when like time doesn't restrict you. And then on top of it, money layered, like capitalism layered on top of like restriction of time is like such a big suffocator of humanity. I
Truly.
think.
No,
Yeah.
sometimes like days here feel like weeks because I'm not doing like numbers, time, counting, like when I turned off like counting part of my brain and really just like, I'm like, oh, I'm going to go take a walk to this little cave or have a long dinner. And everything is still getting taken care of. I'm just not holding and I'm not stressed about it. And actually it's making everything flow so much nicer. So
Yeah. When you're not gripping it. So have you thought about doing like retreats or doing something where you bring like singles together and it's not like, those like Love Islands or whatever. I don't watch any reality TV, but it's like, it doesn't have to be like a weird cutthroat dating thing. But have you thought about doing things like to help support singles? So it doesn't have to be like, here's where we're matchmaking, but like, how can we bring people together to work through like a lot of the stuff that you're seeing and helping them do on an individual level?
Yeah, so I just got back from this thing called Summit at Sea, which is like TED Talks meets kind of Burning Man kind of thing. And I was doing matchmaking in that community by having little different activating events. And so it's a community that I matchmake in. I try to put myself like in the board of admissions of lots of different communities so that I'm meeting every person that's passing through. But yeah, I used to have a matchmaking clubhouse in the East Village so people would just come hang out and meet each other. And then the Sunset Club. Everything I end up doing ends up being matchmaking, even if I don't advertise it as that. But I think it's so cool because like when you are in communities, things will come up and you can learn from watching other people. It's not just like, oh, we're telling you. You can actually observe by seeing the ecosystems that you're around. And so I think I'll always be, for right now, Fatopia is kind of my big love. And so, if you have a curiosity, like we have an arts festival, you can come visit if the vibe fits. But there's lots of communities all over the world. And so me kind of popping in communities that I'm already in love with and lending support and adding the matchmaking into systems that are already there is kind of like been great because I don't want to like run, like I'm already running my business. I don't want to like run
another version of the business.
Yeah, but like I'll go to someone else's retreat and like make sure that the matches are happening and invite people.
Oh, very cool. So how do people find you? How do they connect with you? Do you have an Instagram following where you're like sharing some of this knowledge as well? Like where do people find you?
I'm the worst. I mean, I did 15,000 matchmaking interviews on paper that I have in a room, like in binders that I like, I'm trying to be better with social media. But so I have a website and anyone can apply to be a free match. It's modernloveclub.com, like David Bowie, modernloveclub.com. You can also book a session where we kind of go deep into where you're going, what you've been doing, and kind of help like with strategy. And then if someone's a good match from that session, then I could offer if it's a good fit for matchmaking. I use Instagram poorly, but the company's Instagram is Modern Love Club. And then my personal Instagram, if you just like want to see pictures of like my dog or my hair, that's Amy Van Doran. But hopefully soon my desire to use more social media will come about. But I also do lots of public speaking and I'm available for parties. I have a little thing that I do at parties and I just did at the Met called The Matchmaker is Present, which is how I started, was listening to people's stories. And so I set up my little booth and people for 3 minutes at a time come tell me what's on their mind. And then if I have, I'll either listen thoughtfully or if they want feedback, offer them that feedback. And so we're bringing it back into the performance art original love. But I just love tangible things. I love being in my body and not being behind a computer. And I think that's been the key to kind of me remaining in joy during this process. But I'm gonna consider. Because, it's 15,000 interviews. I probably know something. I should probably start sharing that information on
that wealth of knowledge.
larger scale. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe it's a book, though. Maybe it's a tangible book.
A tangible
like
book.
Something.
Yes. Yes.
versus like an online course digital thing. Maybe it's a
Yeah.
book, of like your advice and what you've seen.
And that
and
was why it's so
witnessed.
hard to get me on the thing. I'm like, hi, guys. Oh. But this has been really fun for me. And
Yeah.
I hope that one day we get to hang out in person. You
Me
seem
too.
amazing.
I think you're really cool, and I really do vibe with you. And so I think
Yeah,
that like
totally.
meeting you in
Totally.
person would be great, whether it's in France, whether it's
And
New
I
York
come
or
to
LA.
LA a lot. I have so many matchmaking clients in LA. I'm out there all the time, been doing a lot of events. And I'm always, no one in LA will leave their house. I'm like, I came all the way here to see you. And they're like, let's do Zoom. And I'm like, you did not have me fly across the country to do Zoom.
To do a Zoom. Yeah. No, it's...
Because I'll get on a flight. I'll get on a flight anywhere. You know? And of course, like I'm doing my matchmaking on Zoom all day. But like, yeah, I want to hang. I want to walk around, do things, check out stuff, see what's going on.
Yeah, I find that a lot of people in LA, like here, it's like I'm always going on walks and hikes and grabbing like a coffee, but moving. Like we're always moving. Anybody I meet up with, or it's in someone's home, or they're like, let's do Zoom. And I'm like, wait, but you live like right there. Like, can't we meet? Like, let's just go up to Griffith Park and like have a little walk, or let's go play pickleball or do something active in person. But,
okay, if you like pickleball, if you want more comrades, I can definitely get you some quality humans. Yeah, the thing I can offer as a matchmaker is that love is creativity. And so if things aren't working the way that you want, reimagine the question, reimagine the possibilities, reimagine, like, we don't know what love looks like. That's part of the great mystery. And so like, I don't want to meet the person that's just like, what I imagine them to look like. I want it to be a surprise and a collaboration that's bigger than my imagination. I want it to be 2 people's imaginations or 3 people's if it's a poly, or like whatever it is, you know, but, and then you combine that and then it's infinite and it's huge and it's magical. And so, yeah, if we can just get people to ease up on judging themselves and other and becoming present and really paying attention to how they're feeling and how they're playing, I think that there might be a way out of this loneliness crisis.
It's stepping away from the formulaic and really being just playful and curious. It's really like distilling it down, like no matter what you're doing, who you are, like relationship or not, it's really just trying to find our playfulness and our humanity in that versus formalizing everything and like trying to utilize data and and follow those kind of things. And yeah, thank you so much for being a guest on Head South Radio. I appreciate your time.
Yay, thank you so much. And I hope for more.
Yeah.
More.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Special thanks to all of our guests. Head South is hosted by Kat Meyer, produced by Isis Barlow, edited by Megan Hook, with music by Lily Rezi Rothman, graphics by Ella Chodos Irvine, cover art by Gina Ship Casey, and intro by Murph Meyer.
If you're looking for me,